The first thing is identifying what you want from a mentor. I have more than one mentor. I have one mentor and probably more than one mentor, but in terms of arts administration, especially me as a Black woman in leadership in this art sector. So I have someone for that. I have someone that supports with helping me with my business. And I think it's important you don't have to have the title as mentor. Something culturally, like growing up, was the village. Just having someone and knowing that you could trust them. So when they are giving you the good and the bad, you trust what they are telling you. And just seeing people, reaching out to people that are doing the things that you want to do in life. Or you may have heard that they navigated a certain situation or experience in life and they came out on top, and just really, having conversations and sharing your stories.
For too long, we've been led to believe that only two types of people can have an extraordinary creative career: creative genius and people who hustle so hard that they're working all the time. Here on the Everyday Talent Podcast, we are shattering that myth. This podcast is built on one truth, which is every one of us can have an extraordinary creative career. The way to get there is not by sacrificing all of ourselves to our work, but rather embracing our authentic selves and carve out unique paths to a fulfilling and joyful creative life. Hello and welcome. My name is Betty. I'm a creative and a coach for creators. I've coached photographers, filmmakers, visual artists, arts consultants, and arts leaders to make intentional career shifts and build thriving independent practices. This podcast is for you if you're looking to cut through the noise of what you should be doing in your creative career and figure out what actually works and matters for you. Before we begin, I want to remind you to subscribe to this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or your platform of choice. Leave us a rating and review and share this podcast on your social so that more amazing creatives out there can find out about this podcast and feel seen. Hi everyone, how are you doing? Welcome back to another episode of the Everyday Talent Podcast. Today's episode is very special, as I have a special guest for you. If you've been following the podcast for a while, you might remember that last year I did an episode with Katie Hutchinson, the Executive Director of Vibe Arts. And in that episode, we talk about how Katie led the team to implement a 4-day work week at Vibe Arts, and her secret sauce in establishing a great culture to enable creatives to do great work. And one of the tips that she shared was hiring people based on their amazing lived experience. And one of the key people she hired is the current artistic director of Vibe Arts. So guess what? I went to invite the artistic director of Vibe Arts to come on the podcast, Onika Powell. Onika Powell brings over 20 years of experience in the arts as a creative and arts leader. She has worked in the Caribbean, Europe, Asia, and Africa. She has a degree in public services and liberal studies from the York University. And of course, she's the current artistic director of Vibe Arts, a community arts organization, providing a professional focus on mentorship. In addition, Onika also co-founded and maintained the role of director of nonprofit dance company. And she's also a part-time professor at Centennial College. Onika wears many hats, as you can hear from her bio. How does she do it all? What is her story? How does she come to what she does? And what were some of the twists and turns on her own path as a creative? And how does that inform her way of cultivating a community of artists and designing effective mentorship programs for artists? Without further ado, here's the interview with Onika. Well, welcome back to another episode of the Everyday Talent Podcast. Today on the episode, I have a very special guest here with me. She's someone that I've worked with for a couple years through my fundraising consulting work with Vibe Art. You actually previously heard an episode where I talked to the executive director of Vibe Arts, Katie Hutchinson. And on that episode, we actually did a plug and said, like, oh, Onika should come on this podcast. And guess what? Onika is here today and talk to me about her journey and her work at Vibe Arts. Welcome, Onika.
Thank you for having me, Betty. Hello.
Yay. Onika, can you tell, I know that you wear many hats and we'll dive all into that. Can you introduce the audience what you do and how you come to do what you do?
Sure. So hello, everyone watching, listening. My name's Onika Powell, pronouns she, her. I am, as you know, Betty just mentioned, the artistic director at Vibe Arts. Before that, I am a mother of two beautiful kids. Shout out my little ones. I am artistic director, program director of D-Life Dance Company. We're in our 10th year. That's just providing arts dance programming to children in the Malvern area. And then on top of that, I am a consultant of GoLEFT Creatives. I teach part-time at Centennial College. I'm a lifelong learner, student. I chair a couple of boards, part of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. Gotta shout them out. But before all of this, I was a dancer, and that's kind of how I started my artistic career. I started dancing at the age of 7, doing Caribbean folk dancing. When I got into high school, that's kind of when it transitioned to hip hop, soca, dancehall, the Caribbean styles, and kind of left that side of the Caribbean cultural dancing. Me and my best friend, who we're still close today and do a lot of our business together. So she kind of stayed in that world, and I transitioned to the commercial world, if you want to call it that. And then joined a dance group, Ruckus Dance Troupe. Shout out to them as well. Got to do a lot of music videos, movies, touring with artists, teaching dance classes. When I turned about 19 is when I got my first opportunity to teach a dance class and fell in love with it. I think that's one of the major key points when I look back at just transitioning from dancer to choreographer to instructor or educator. That was one of them. And while I was touring, I actually just started reaching out to dance studios wherever I was going to be at and ask if I could teach a dance class. And one of the things when you're in Toronto, you're kind of in your own bubble out here, especially with the Caribbean world, and you don't realize how many people are actually watching your bubble. So when I was touring in Europe, a lot of people were like, I know you, I know what you do, you're in this video, and yes, we would love to have you. And that kind of just helped build confidence to be like, okay, maybe this can be bigger than what it is. I lived in Vancouver, just randomly went on a trip out there with my friend and booked a movie. And the agent was like, hey, if you stay here, you'll get a lot of work. So I stayed there for 2 years. Transitioning from there, I saw one of my friends. She was living in Korea at the time. Also another dancer from Toronto, and she was transitioning from Korea to London, and I was asking her an update, and she was like, yeah, come out to London. I was like, how do you do that? And she told me about the youth mobility visa. So I will plug that right away. If anyone is still a youth, I always encourage everyone to explore. Canada has a great opportunity for resident citizens to be able to travel to different countries around the world and be able to work there with a visa. You don't have to worry about finding someone to sponsor you or anything like that. So take advantage of it. That's what I did. Lived in London for 2 years, got to work with a lot of amazing choreographers who are now choreographing for Beyonce and all your top artists in the industry. So that was a great opportunity. Again, just networking, building networks. And then after there, I moved to Morocco. Someone found my resume randomly and asked me if I would like to come out there. So I said yes. It was an amazing opportunity. But then my grandmother passed away. So that's what brought me back to Toronto, helping my mother with the estate. And when I came back, I connected with my best friend, and she had this these young girls in a church room, the community center room of the church, teaching them dance. And I was like, this is amazing. And that's kind of where Life birthed and GoLEFT. And we do carnival costumes, creating masks. But again, and I think we'll talk about this later, when you're creative, it's kind of like, and I had kids at the time, but it's like, how can I do this and also make money? And you think that it doesn't fit in the same world. So I started working at a bank. And if anyone is a creative and works for a corporation, you know that if you don't have an outlet, it kind of just like gets you down. So that's what happened to me. I applied at Porter Airlines, was working as a receptionist, and I was like, yay, this is my opportunity to still travel and, you know, in between this job. And no, you don't get that opportunity. So again, just really hitting rock bottom. I was part of a mentorship program for dance immersion. Shout out to them as well. That's where I met two of my mentors. And they really helped build back that confidence. And it was a transformative learning experience to just realize, you know, just because I haven't seen it yet doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. And they really helped me just visualize what it is I want, made me write it down. And I was like, I just want to work for an organization where I could help community, use my network. I don't care to make lots of money, just enough to take care of my family. And I took a chance and applied for Vibe Arts as the administrative assistant. And Katie reached out and was like, hey, we're also looking for artistic director. And I thought she was crazy. And my best friend said, no, you know, tell her yes. And I was like, okay. And just focused on the admin. Went into the interview and didn't get it. I cried. And Katie said, looking forward to seeing you at the next interview. And I thought she was crazy again, because I was like, who's going to hire me if I can't even get, you know, an admin position? And my best friend encouraged me. She's like, no, go in. Maybe this is for you. Went into the interview. We had a great experience. I went through 3 interviews because at the time we had to be interviewed by some of our youth artists as well, and the rest of the team. And it's been amazing ever since. I know I rambled, but I just wanted to give like kind of pinpoint areas of my life that brought me here. But yeah, it's truly one of the greatest jobs I could ever imagine, ever do. Just really being or creating spaces, creating opportunities for a lot of artists, and thinking about the challenges I had coming up, and just listening and being a support for them. Yeah. So I'm here now.
There's so many themes that came out in your story, and I really appreciate you kind of describe each chapter. And one of the themes that I'm picking up that I think about it a lot is like how much choices are intentional in our creative career. And because at some points it sounded like you follow the flow, the opportunities came to you. But you also make very strategic choices at different points. So I'm curious about your thoughts of like, when you look back, what were some like defining choices that you make that lead you here?
Yeah, definitely. When I think back in the beginning, I'm a planner. I need to make sure like everything is mapped out. Those who danced with me, I always shout out Latoya Webley. She's another dancer that was in Ruckus Dance Troupe. Danced for Drake, Mary J. Blige, Beyonce, everyone. Toronto has talent. But she was, when we were dancing, she went to New York and she was like, Onika, come over, let's come to New York. Like, we got this. And I was like, no, I got to make sure, like, I don't have a visa. Like, I got to find. And I found every excuse. And that was me up until I actually moved to Vancouver, that I needed to see how things were going to happen. When I moved to Vancouver and that happening randomly, it was like, oh, it's not that bad once you don't plan things. Like, just believe in your skills and your talents. But of course, imposter syndrome is real. So even when I stepped out of being a dancer into artistic director at Vibe Arts, it still took my best friend and mentors to tell me like, no, you have the transferable skills are there. And that was one of the things Katie mentioned to me after I got hired. It was like, you do all of this already for your own companies, for yourself as an entrepreneur. And sometimes it's hard to see that in a different role. in a different world. I think when you're, especially as a Black person growing up in under-resourced communities, the art sector seems so distant and so siloed away from you. So you don't see, especially if you don't see the representation in there, you don't see yourself even being a part of that narrative or that landscape. So again, that was another point. Once Katie mentors my best friend and getting into this role, and then just meeting different people and they're being like, oh, wow, like you're really good at this, or how do you do this, or how do you think this, how do you approach this? And just people coming to me for just my insight and expertise. Again, that's another level of like, okay, no, I'm meant to be here. So yeah, that's more where I am right now. I trust my intuition, my spirit's a big thing, and everything's just guided by community. It's not about me. So a lot of it is conversations with artists, finding out, okay, what do you want? What are you hoping for? And just being that middle person for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A big theme. In a second, we're definitely going to talk about community. Before that, like another big theme that came out what you share is this process of cultivating one's self-belief and inner confidence. And this comes up a lot because I coach creatives as well. Like, does confidence comes first, or does experience and practice come first? Another chicken and egg question.
Yeah.
So I'm curious about your thoughts, because it seems like at multiple moments in your career, there were people who believe in you, and then it gives you kind of like the insight that you could believe in yourself as well to aim higher.
Yeah.
Tell us more about like your journey with your relationships with confidence.
Definitely for me, it's experience comes first. And again, this is just my journey and myself. Like, I look at my daughter and she'll do something and I'm like, oh my God, you're so brave. And I wish I could be that. And I'm amazed at her. But for me, it's definitely, I heavily depend on my experiences to give me the confidence to know that, okay, even if I don't have a degree in this or 10 years experience in this, my lived experience matters and means something. It's valuable, especially when I think about a cultural context where a lot of what we do is not documented, or when you're in certain spaces, colonial spaces, it's not understood. So I have to have the confidence in what has been passed on to me, and what I am doing is enough to validate and some of the decisions I make, how I approach things. But yeah, it's always a work in progress. I'm, like I said in the beginning, I'm a lifelong learner. I'm always learning. I'm always listening. Example, I was at Centennial College. My students, they put on a symposium for arts administrators, and it's a networking opportunity. And here I am. They know me now for almost a year, and this person who's passing on knowledge and creating a learning space for all of us. But walking into that symposium, I'm like listening to the panels and just really, taking in everything and analyzing them, reflecting, okay, how does this work with what I'm doing? Am I doing something wrong? Could I be doing something a bit better? So there's no end to this. It's not that, I finally got this dream job and that's it. Like, no, I have to continue learning, especially when you're dealing with so many communities, vulnerable communities, where language changes all the time. You just have to be aware and do the training and attending workshops, having conversations, especially at a community level. Yeah.
That's such a good
and being
point.
Aware
like learning never stops.
Being aware of my positionality and everything, how I occupy space in my role as artistic director. I do know I have that power over other people, but when I walk in other spaces, it's like, no, you're a Black woman, so what does that look like? So yeah. School's been a big help as well. I'm also in school. So.
Yeah, you're also in school. You just dropped that you're also in school, and it leads perfectly to my next questions, which is, it seems like wearing multiple hats, and this is very common for a lot of creators. You mentioned earlier when you were sharing your story that there's sometimes of like, how can I do this? Well, I make a living. Really real question for a lot of us. And so for a lot of creators at different stages of their career, doing multiple things, having multiple hustles, is very common. It seems like you're still wearing different hats at this stage in your career. How do you manage your time?
I'm still trying to figure out the thing. Calendars. It's I try my best to balance. My mentor, Peter Scott, gave me great advice. He told me to draw a circle and divide it by 4. So like 1/4 is your work, 1/4 is sleep, 1/4 is towards like getting, whether it's family or whatever, that kind of thing. But the next quarter is for you. And what I have done, and I'm trying to do better at, but is I've put every other hustle into that quarter is for me. I have a bad habit of not saying no when people ask for help or support or, can you join this? I also sit on a board as well for Centennial College for their program. But yeah, I think I'm really in a position now where I'm getting older, being mindful of my kids wanting my time. Before I was like, oh, if I do this amount of stuff, then I'll be in a right position to better our family. But I am missing out on time with them at these early ages. Not to say I'm not doing it. Like, they're amazing. They travel the world. They do stuff, lots of activities. But just even being more hands-on, I would like to be there. So I'm in the process right now of taking things off my plate, stepping down from initiatives, and being okay with saying no. I can't. And that's okay. Yeah, but definitely calendars. I mean, even just to eat, I have alarms that will tell me, okay, it's breakfast time. Okay, it's lunchtime. Like, I need that. And that's okay. And that's okay to need that as well. And I have great support. My mom, my parents are big supporters. My friends, I mentioned my best friend a lot. I have great support around me that they help out. I don't do any of this alone, and I know that. So I go as far as I can, and then I say, hey, you know what? I just need a day to just recharge, or, I take lots of trips now, so that helps to recharge me. But yeah, just finding, for everyone, I encourage just to find whatever it is that fills your cup. Another thing, another best friend I have, he always tells me, pour from your saucer. I know we always say fill your cup and then pour from the cup. No, the cup is you. It's for you and only you. But anything that falls onto the saucer underneath, that's what you serve from. Don't ever empty it all the way, because then you're going to depend on other people to refill your cup, and it won't happen. It's not a guarantee. So
my mind just broke. Your best friend is so wise. Everyone has to meet your best friend one day.
Don't tell him. But yeah, I'm very appreciative of the people around me. I'm spiritual, so I go to church. That refills me in the mornings. I start my days with meditation, prayer. I'm just very mindful of everything I'm doing. Yeah.
I love that model of like dividing the chart. And I also love that image of pour from the saucer. And it all speaks to the theme that like we are ultimately the one that's mindful and responsible for our own well-being.
Yeah. You can't depend on other people as much as we would love to, but life is lifing right now, and everybody's going through stuff. And I don't get mad when other people don't meet expectations or anything. I'm just like, okay, something's going on. Maybe I do know about it, maybe I don't. But at the end of the day, I'm responsible to pick up whatever is left. Right.
Yeah. You talk about your story, and I've heard you share some of your stories before or insights before. And one thing that always struck me is that you always talk about that in context of like the people who uplift you and help you in the community that you're in. And so nowadays, your role at Vibe Arts, you also, as you mentioned, have the power and the responsibility to uplift an artistic community. So let's talk about that a bit. Like, how do you translate your own live and work experience in supporting other artists nowadays?
A beautiful thing that happened when I first started at Vibe, again, because I shout out Katie so much. Like, honestly, she's she's a gem. And I wish more organizations, leadership team reflected the qualities that Katie has. I think her coming into her role, just because there wasn't no experience or anything like that, she just did what made sense to her rather than this is how things are done in the art sector. Is like, no, I just want someone who does the work, like, and understanding, okay, this is my strong suit. We need someone artistic. And does our leadership team reflect the communities we serve? No, it doesn't. So that also, like, she really paid attention to what was missing. And then also, again, speaking life into me to be like, no, you actually do this. Like, you'd be perfect for this. And that has always continued even after getting the role. It wasn't like, okay, you're here, do your thing, and that's it. It was like, I remember walking into events where it's like, I'm the only Black person that's attending as a guest, where the rest of the Black people are like serving food or cleaning. And Katie would be like, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, why? What happened? She's like, oh, it's just because you're the only Black person. I want to make sure you feel like, we literally are a team in this. She, if I could say, even held my hand coming in to make sure, like, you know, and anything we didn't know, we figured out together, and we used our resources and networks and everything. But on top of that, because I've never done this before, I just, again, thinking about, if I was an artist in this position, what would I want being part of an organization and a new leadership team is coming in? And it was just to listen. So I literally had conversations with staff members, with artists, and just said, okay, what worked and what didn't work? What would you like to see? Simple questions. And then you just take all that information, and a lot of it was like, artists just wanted to feel heard, seen, opportunities for them, vibe, you know, really focused on arts programming. And then when I was onboarded, Jason, our mentorship manager, was onboarded, like, that's when it kind of focused more on the mentorship, like them as an artist, them as a entrepreneur, like beyond. And I think that's important, because sometimes when you're working for an organization, it just feels, or a business, it feels one way. It feels like you're doing everything for them they get all the hype, they get all the accolades, and there's nothing filling, again, your cup. So it's like, we understand at Vibe, you are going into these communities almost as ambassadors. So we have to make sure you're good. We have to make sure that you are reaching the full potential, because at the end of the day, you are a part of Vibe. You're a part of, you know, part of this process going into the community and sharing our vision and our mission. And on top of that, once we support you and you reach your potential, you have a whole community that you belong to and is seeing this. And then now you're empowering a next generation. So even that, with how we do programming, it's like an established artist is mentoring an emerging artist. We have mentorship residencies where there's one-on-one conversations, there's professional development workshops. Even that, it's like asking, okay, in this program, what areas do you feel you need to work on? And then we are developing the workshops on top of that. What kind of events did you wish that you could attend? Maybe you never had access, maybe you never felt confident. And they're sharing that, and we're looking for those opportunities. Recently, we just brought Amanda Paris, did a talk for the culture, hosted by TIFF, and it's like those connections with TIFF, and we brought some of our next artists to that event. And something so small where, again, us with more experience and we attend these things, we think nothing of it. It's like hanging with our friends within the sector, and you're catching up and you're proud of the artist that's sharing their story. But for an emerging artist, this is a whole new world. And I just remember, like, their faces were glowing, just being like, wow, I'm here. I'm invited guest. I have exclusive one-on-one conversations. Like, two of our artists ended up sitting in the seats for Viola Desmond that was dedicated for the theater. Like that, those kind of experiences. Wow. You know, one artist, I said, "You good? Like, are you networking?" She's like, "I'm really nervous. I would love to meet someone from CBC." And it's like, two of my friends that I've done a project with in the past are right on my right side. And it's like, okay, hold on a second. Let me introduce you to. And then that trust is there, right, too. So anyone I'm introducing them to, that other person knows, like, if Onika's behind you and got your back, I don't need anything more. Like, tell me what you need. How can I help you? So it's that almost acting like an agent for them and a mother. They laugh sometimes. They call me Mama Neeks, but it's just really, I love being part of people's journeys and their stories. And it's the mother in me. I'm born in July. I'm a Cancer. I really just care about people. I think that's aligned with my purpose in life. It's just really listening. And I love being the middle person. I don't care to be in the forefront, to be like, I did this. No, put me back here and I'll watch you on stage and be like, yes, I knew it. There's nothing more than seeing an artist really blossom and grow into their full potential.
Yeah. And your energy just went off the chart as you talk about I can really feel that mission alignment. And Onika, I have to tell you, like, in the past 4 or 5 years working with Vibe, I've met so many artists that they said, like, Onika and Jason and like the team at Vibe Arts, particularly Onika, really took a chance on me, really encouraged me when I didn't believe myself. And I always wonder, what did Onika say to you when your self-belief is down? What's your secret sauce in like encouraging an artist when they yet to see their potential? I finally get to ask you that.
I'm like, that's what I'm going in school for, trying to figure out. And this is something my mentor, he asked me, and my best friend, we have businesses together, but he mentors both of us. He's like, figure out your secret sauce. And we're just like, literally, we just care. We just care in a world where everyone's fighting for the same opportunities and holding back and judging people, not taking the time to just learn about maybe someone's upbringing, their experience, giving grace. I just care. And I think just being that ear for a lot of people. And I think more than just hearing them, I'm listening. So it's like, okay, when you're talking, I'm hearing that you probably need a little bit more support in this area. And then I see, what support do we have? What resources do we have? Because again, it's like those little things that we take for granted. That's all you need. You need someone to write you a reference letter. Okay. So yeah. I think our artists really understand at Vibe. It's a family. We walk the walk. We don't just say something and then move on. We really care about each and every artist. We look for opportunities beyond Vibe. We have something called Vibe Connect where, other organizations and partners, they send us opportunities, and it's like, here, spread the word, tell your friends, even if they're not part of Vibe, like, there's opportunities out there. And sometimes we go as far as like, hey, I'm so busy this week. I can't even get to the application. Don't worry about it. It's like, no, it's okay. I'll fill out the application for you. Just make sure like you show up. I really want to see all of our artists win because I really appreciate everything that they do for Vibe. But then on top of it, like, I see the talent. Toronto's art scene, there's so much talent that's just being undiscovered. I love when, Toronto's projects and programs, they bring international people here, and it's like, cool, but there's so much talent right here. And if I could help build their resumes to get them in that spotlight, like, yeah.
Yes, do that.
Secret sauce is, I honestly, where I'm at right now is just literally listening in a world that doesn't listen. Everyone's kind of just consumed in their own life, and yeah.
Like you said, it's simple but not straightforward sometimes for some whatever odd reason.
Yes. And I would say too, what's helpful is my own journey through mentorship and having that transformative learning experience and identifying what happened during those experiences. I want that for other people. So when they tell me they can't or they don't see this possible, it's like, no, I totally understand. I've been where you've been. Just because we didn't see it yet doesn't mean it doesn't exist, or it doesn't mean we can't create it. So that really helps me. And them knowing, the more I share my story, the more young artists and emerging arts administrators or artists, they're seeing like, okay, Onika understands what I'm going through. It's not someone just coming in and they have no idea how this works. Like, I get it. I may not get everything because, of course, my time when I grew up compared to now, especially with technology and everything, but I get have some sort of relation to what you're going through. So, yeah, just holding hands and taking them over. Yeah.
For someone who's starting out as a creative artist, and I think this, again, I'm asking on behalf of a lot of people have these questions, and sometimes I hear that as I go to events too. It's like everybody talks about the importance of mentorship, but how does one go about and find a good mentor?
I think the first thing is identifying what you want from a mentor. I have more than one mentor. I have one mentor and probably more than one mentor, but in terms of arts administration, especially me as a Black woman in leadership in this art sector. So I have someone for that. I have someone that supports with helping me with my business. And I think it's important you don't have to have the title as mentor. Something culturally, like growing up, was the village. Just having someone and knowing that you could trust them. So when they are giving you the good and the bad, you trust what they are telling you. And just seeing people, reaching out to people that are doing the things that you want to do in life. Or you may have heard that they navigated a certain situation or experience in life and they came out on top, and just really, having conversations and sharing your stories. Again, for me, the experience of being in Europe and just cold calling, different studios and asking, hey, I would like to teach. And then seeing it blow up to something even more where they're like, sure, let us know your dates. I'll buy your plane ticket, the hotel. And it's like, I wasn't even expecting that. So it's that kind of gives the confidence of telling other people, like, just ask. You'll be so surprised how much times the answer is actually yes, or sure, I could help you, or I can't help you, but I know someone who can help you. I think the beautiful thing about our sector is a lot of people, especially people of color, Black, Indigenous, like, we are all here. We get the system. So we know more of us in here is going to help create change. So more than likely we are going to help and mentor and support the next generation come up because we know the end results of it. But I think just asking, but knowing what you want, be mindful of everybody's time. I tell my students at the same time too, like a 20 minute coffee call. If you don't drink coffee, tea, or, a smoothie, but be prepared with what you want to ask, and even tell people up front, hey, I saw this, and show that you took the time to actually research first before you're just, I know you are occupy this role, but what else? Like, research. The internet is out there, especially if it's a director or a manager or anything, like, it's on organizations' websites. So do the research. Have 3 or 4 questions that you really want to ask. Send the email, say, hey, I saw this. I would love to ask you this. Are you available for 15, 20 minutes? From that, show up as your best self. Learn to listen. I think sometimes that's missed, where people come into conversations, mentorships, and it's like, I know. If you know, why are we here? Right? So really learn to listen and be open to different experiences. I think a good mentor is not someone who's going to tell you what to do, but tell you what they did and allow you to see different paths that you could take and open your eyes to what's available out there. I will never force somebody to follow my path because my path might not be the best thing, but I'm going to share the lessons I've learned so to help you navigate or to avoid. And whatever decision you make from there, like, I'm going to support you. Yeah, and I think just showing up and really showing that you want this, you're hungry for this, then, like, for me, that's how I take mentees, is if you show up, I got you. And usually the case is, I tell them, you're stuck with me for life. So even when we have those conversations, it doesn't end when you reach whatever goal that you think. I check in after. I'm making sure you're good. I'm looking at, hey, this event, that would be perfect for someone that I spoke to last year. And that's the same way we treat mentorship at Vibe as well. Is like we tell our mentees, when you're meeting with the mentors, be prepared. Like, do not waste anybody's time. And most likely they will continue mentoring you past this program, which we see a lot. So yeah, I would say
that's what you said there is probably one of the best version. Like, I would just say the best version or advice that I heard about mentorship. So many what you said were like just like I was like nodding my head off. And I want to iterate that point that you mentioned about like sometimes mentor can like we can have multiple mentors. We don't need to like have one mentor that like guide us in all fronts.
Exactly. And then, sorry, one thing I just add too, because something we do at Vibe when we first started our programs, we actually had a session for mentors to learn how to be mentors. So you can also assume that, you know, whoever you're reaching out to is a good mentor. So be okay with, is this a one-time conversation I'm going to get out of this and walk away and find somebody else that could really support me? Or they are, right? So not everybody's perfect. Not everybody, we always say this in dance, not every dancer could be a choreographer or a teacher. So, you know, give people grace as well. And mentorship opportunities or teaching or anything, it should be a two-way street. You're learning from each other. So
definitely, yeah. So on that note, if people were to want to reach out to you for a 15-minute smoothie, or they want to reach out to you to learn more about all the programs at Vibe to support artists, how would they find you?
Onika at vibearts.ca. That's the best way. Send an email. But a lot of the opportunities that we have, we share on our social media, our newsletters. So join our newsletter. Follow us on Instagram. But yeah, just reach out. And if I can help you, again, I'm in a state of learning to say no. So if I can't help you, I will see who else in my network or circle could help you. But yeah.
Awesome. We will leave those information about Vibe and what you share in the show notes. Onika, thank you so much. I'm just like every single time that I talk to you or, you know, just witness you talking or giving a speech in the past couple of years, I'm always in awe of like your insights and wisdom. So I feel so honored today that you came on the podcast and shared these insights with the greater community, as you always do. And your care for the artistic community is so visible and tangible.
And I want to thank you because, you know, working with you as well, like when you give me feedback, like that helps with my confidence too. It's like, Betty, you do this. This is your job. So when you're telling me like, Onika, just come in and speak, and that's good enough. That gives me confidence. So I appreciate, you know, all the years of working beside me. And of course, this platform, like I said, for me sharing my story, and my hope is just to encourage other people just to remember there's no one way to whatever goal you have, and build your village is very important, and it's okay. Give yourself grace for your shortfalls, and yeah, just keep going.
Awesome. So, keep going. That's the mantra. Yeah.
Keep going.
Awesome. Did you enjoy this conversation with Onika? I'm always amazed when I talk to Onika, as she has so much wisdom to share. And on today's episode, as I hear her story, I'm particularly amazed with how many times she challenged her own assumption of what is possible for herself and go beyond and reach for their possibilities. I hope we all channel that spirit as we design our own path. Thank you so much for listening today. If you like this episode, be sure to follow the podcast on whichever podcast platform that you listen to or on YouTube. And you can also subscribe to my regular reflection on the creative path by subscribing to my e-news. I'll leave the link in the show note. May we all be intentional about our choices on our creative path and creative career. I will see you on the next episode.